The cross is a picture difficult to understand. He was betrayed by a friend, arrested and falsely sentenced to death. He was beaten and whipped. A crown made of thorns pressed into his head. Bearing the cross, he stumbled and staggered up the hill to Golgotha. Each step of the journey getting worse, spit on, cursed, and mocked. But Jesus never looked back. He kept going. Jesus could have avoided the cross, called down fire from heaven, or summoned legions of angels to rescue him, to save him. But Jesus was not interested in saving himself. He was all about saving you. Every detail of this torturous path to the cross was part of God's plan to bring you to him. We're all broken. We've all messed up and have all made wrong choices. And no one had to teach us as a baby about anger and selfishness. We just came out that way, sort of a sin covering. But on the cross, with his blood he shed, the Bible says Jesus blotted out our record of sin, nailing it to his cross. The blood of Jesus washes away our sin covering. And his blood is our ticket to enter through a new door, a forever relationship door with God. So what do we do with this great news? The Bible says, if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. You see, it's not enough to believe in Jesus with just your head. You must believe with your heart. Now, there's just one person alone at the foot of the cross. It is you. What will you say to Jesus? Say, thank you, Jesus, for shedding your blood for me. I'm giving you my heart today, Jesus. I do believe you died for me and that you were raised from the dead for me. Please give me a new heart and a new life right now. God hears you, and he is answering your prayer. The love of God is being poured out within our hearts through the Holy Spirit.
Well, all right, family. Thank you guys for joining us so late. We've been trying to get a video out now since Tuesday, then Wednesday, then Thursday. Now it's Saturday. So we're finally got part of a video we can do. So thank you guys for joining us. Hopefully it's not too late for some of you guys. But well, Charles, if you're ready to tell us what we're going to be talking about today. I'm clueless. There's so much.
Well, as Mike said, what's happened is we were trying to make a video a few days ago, and every time we got together to talk about things, we would find literally within minutes 10 more things, and we would discuss that, and within a few minutes we'd find more things, and next thing you know, we had hundreds of unbelievable moments where things were just unfolding in front of us. And Amish, you said you wanted to speak about that too. What was your experience this week? You've had a lot of that happen to you as well.
Yeah, this week, the hardest part about trying to get a video together is that as we've been studying separately, and every time we get on Discord with each other, there's a new revelation coming about every 10 minutes. And they're major revelations, and it's hard to then prioritize and get stuff in an outline, because there's so many things coming so fast. And the thing that has given me confidence that this really is the time that we've been looking for is the fact that these books are opening up and these revelations are opening up now. We used to go, if we were happy, if we had something interesting to say, 2 or 3 things, maybe every week or 2 weeks. This is like every 10 minutes now. And they're so major. It's such major revelation that it just blows us away, and we're speechless. And and we're just amazed. I mean, we've been whooping and hollering the whole week. So that's what the difficulty of getting a video together is, that we're just trying to figure out which of these we even share. I mean, we've forgotten half of them. Half of them didn't even get written down because we were,
oh man,
we were celebrating so much when we found them. But we're going to try to bring many of those that we found this week in this video. This is not going to be an all-encompassing video, because we're gonna try to do a video, another one shortly after this, to share some information that absolutely ties out times and certain years, and we're going to place on the calendar of years several major biblical historical events, and we're going to show the interrelationship of when those took place and who those players were and when they happened in history. There's been a lot of contention about that. There's a lot of false information out there, a lot of fake history news out there that has to be overcome, and we're going to try to do that and put that out in the next few days.
Well, that's absolutely correct. And just 20 minutes ago, but when we were starting to prep for our last final things to get ready for this video, we found 2 or 3 more bombshells, and we're like, okay, now what do we do with that? Do we even put it in this video? And so there's a lot. It's overwhelming. But what we're going to try to lay out in this video is the basic video we were trying to get out on Tuesday or Wednesday, and we're going to add to it a little bit more today and just beef it up. And then hopefully we'll get another 1 or 2 or 3 more videos out this week. We're going to do it in rapid fire with all the rest of the stuff that's unfolding. But it's exactly like Amish is saying, and we're being very honest. Within every 10 to 15 minutes, another chapter, another verse, something's opening up right in front of us, and it's overwhelming and it's shocking. And so to begin, let's get into our basic video here. Unless Amish or Mike, you got anything to add before we start?
Nope. Go ahead.
We're good. Okay. What we're gonna teach first is the relationship between Noah and Noah's story, and Daniel in Daniel's story. And so what I did, let me share my screen so we can all. Yeah. Oh, can you share that with me, Mike?
Yeah,
It's
click that button.
It's disabled right now. I gotta.
Go ahead. You can do it now.
Is it ready to go? Okay. So I hit share screen, right? Okay. So can you guys see the calendar now? Is the calendar up?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so what we've done, and everyone who's been following this ministry, you know that we have this calendar that we've created. It's the Enoch calendar, and there's quite a bit of information on here. I've recently color coded things, so everything in the blue is relating to the Genesis story of Noah. Everything in the green has to do with another story. The brownish is a Jubilees. So everything is pretty much color coded now. But when you look at it, there's a lot of information, and it seems like it's all crammed up. But the whole picture of everything that we've been teaching is now on this part of the calendar. And so what I did was I separated it, what we're going to teach today. What we're going to teach today, I put in here down in the tab, if you can see on the bottom, we're going to teach about Noah and Daniel and those connections. And then we're going to teach about Noah, Abraham, and Lot in those connections. And all I simply did, if you look up here where you start off, right here is where the Noah story starts. And then, we have over here where we have, the Noah story starts here. And then we also have the Daniel 9 story that's up here also. And then it walks its days all the way through. And then it starts getting a little cluttered in here. So what I did was I separated it. I made a separate calendar. It's the same story. Nothing's changed. It's the same dates on the Gregorian calendar. And then we use the Hebrew calendar here that I'm pointing to. And then we also use the dates of the Enoch calendar. So it's the same calendar. I just took those specific stories of Noah and Daniel, and I put them here so that we're only focusing right now on Noah and Daniel and those timelines. And what we're going to try to show you, and we can absolutely prove it right now, it's absolutely proof positive that what's happening is the Daniel story and the Noah story literally start on the exact same day. And both stories end on the exact same date. And we're going to prove that out. We're going to prove out that day for day, Daniel and the Noah story walk through the exact same timeline. And when we started this several days ago, that was our intention, to just walk through the same days of Daniel and Noah and prove those days out. But what's happened from there is so miraculous and mind-blowing. And the information that the Lord poured upon us literally was like an avalanche of information that came out of here. And a good portion of it, Amish is going to go through next and teach. But there's a lot more. I think what you're going to get today is maybe 25% of all the information we have. And then in the next video, we're going to lay out some more of it. And hopefully by the last video we're going to do this week, you'll get the remainder of it. But as we said, day by day, the information's coming in like a flood, literally, like the flood story. So without further ado, what I'm basically saying is we're going to walk you through this timeline of Daniel and Noah to show you that both stories are not only identical in what they're telling us, but the dates, the actual dates are the same dates. And so with that, Amish, I'm going to let you take over and teach your slot. And then I'll wrap it up after that with a tie into all the dates. You're muted, Mike. Amish, you're muted.
I tried to do a double monitor thing so I could move through this a lot faster, but quite frankly, I didn't have the right hardware. So bear with me. I'm going to try to switch around and get through this as fast and easy as possible. And somebody had made a comment on the last video that the screen was shrunken. So I'm going to try to make sure that I've got everything in here as readable as possible. So this being part thrice or part three of this information that we're bringing, I just wanted to go over first what we will uncover in this video. And among these things are, what is the fast of Gedaliah? You may not have ever heard of it before. Who is Gedaliah? What is this fast for? We're going to introduce you to Gedaliah, and I think you'll be blessed by it. Why is it done on the third day of the seventh month? How is Gedaliah tied to the book of Daniel and the 70 years? And how is this tied to our escape day of 9/11/2020? So those are the things that we're going to try to bring out in this video. Now, you may remember in the previous video we did an introduction into our 14-year understanding of why the tribulation period, the affliction, is 14 years. And we went through why we know that, what the evidence was in the Bible for that. We discussed why people think that it's only 7 years long. We discussed how there's a pre-tribulation escape, a rapture at the end of seals, and then Christ coming back for Judah at the end of trumpets. So if you're unsure about any of those things, then go back and watch that first part of the last video, or sign up at the Ministry Revealed forum and watch those introductory videos and become familiar with that, because much of the information that we're going to go through kind of assumes that you have a basic understanding of that. Somebody had made a comment on the last video about, well, how do you know it's 2020? Well, we know it's 2020 because we have the 2000th anniversary of the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ that was in 2033. And all of these things have to be completed by then as we enter into the Jubilee year in that 2034 for that final year of trumpets, which is rest. So that's how we know it's 2020. So now, if you recall, in our last video, we discussed at length about the Zion the number 7 in Hebrew, which means it's a sword of time. And we showed in Luke 2:35 how it pierces the ayin, or the eyes, the understanding. The 7 pierces the 70. That sword pierces the ayin to make the 70. And we discussed how this occurs on the first day of the 7th month of Tishri. And we discussed and showed a slide about how that is the day that all the king's reigns are measured as the beginning date. Not just Israel's dates, but many other empires always measured their reign on Rosh Hashanah, that first day of the 7th month. We discussed how there were differences in the Gospels relating to the discussion of fasting, and how that discussion of fasting prove that the Israelites, based in the wording that's in Luke, will fast not in the 7th month in the 71st year. How it says Luke is eating and drinking, but Mark says they fast not. Matthew says they fast not. So Mark being written to the left behind lukewarm church, and Matthew being written to Judah, they will fast not, but the bride will be eating and drinking. Well, what fast are they not fasting for? That fast that they're not fasting for is the fast that's spoken about in Tishri 3, known as the fast of Gedaliah. And we showed, and I'll bring it up here again. We showed this spreadsheet where and we discussed how this was always something that sort of bothered me in the as we've discussed this on the Ministry Revealed forum, and Alan had said many times that we're in the 70th year, and I that used to just make my head explode, because I was like, no, we're not in the 71st year. I mean, Israel from May 14th of 1948, we're talking about 73 or so. And at one point, I spent an entire day trading comments with people, trying to figure out, how exactly are you saying we're in the 70th year? Well, now I know how we're in the 70th year. So as you recall, when we went through this spreadsheet, we said that in 1948, in May, that's when Israel declared its independence. That's when the guy holds up the newspaper, Israel born, well, they weren't, they may have been born on May 14th, but they didn't get rid of their provisional government, their temporary government, until May 11th of 1949. That's when they were actually recognized by the UN. And a while back, I had a different interpretation of the Isaiah prophecy of saying that can a nation be born in a day? And I saw that as a question of Yahuwah asking, can a nation be born in a day? And the answer obviously is no. You can't make a nation in a day. It takes time. You have to write a constitution. You have to elect people. You have to delegate authority. You have to, make up and print forms of governmental to administrate a government. You can't have a government in a day, right? So yeah, in this particular case, it took about 9 months for that to take place, and then it happens. But we didn't count this fasting of the 5th month in that count, and the reason we didn't was because it wasn't the new year. It wasn't a whole first new year, but the first day of the 7th month was the new year spiritually for Israel, and that's why we count the 7th month. And what is that 7th month fast that it's talking about? We always thought that it was the fast of the Day of Atonement, but it isn't. And we're going to show how we absolutely know that it isn't the fast of the Day of Atonement. This is actually the fast of Gedaliah. And the first fast of Gedaliah, which occurred on Tishri 3 in September 26th of 1949, just so happened that Tishri 1 that preceded it was the vernal equinox. So if there was any question as to what period that they were moving in, or what season they were in, it was clearly past the vernal equinox. This was the Tishri 1, and it was the fast of Gedaliah in that month. And we showed that as we counted this down, this is how we got to the last fasting of the 5th month. So there were 71 fasts in the 5th month. But there will not be a fast in the 7th month that's coming up here on September 19th, right?
Yeah, I think that was supposed to say the autumn solstice, or the autumn solstice, not the vernal.
Yeah, did
equinox.
I say vernal equinox?
Yeah.
I meant autumnal equinox.
Yeah.
And equinox actually meaning equal night. So it's equal day and equal night.
Yeah.
And so so we said there that we know this is how we have confidence. And why are we looking at the 5th month and the 7th month? Well, we're looking at the 5th month and the 7th month because of the scripture in Zechariah. So let's make this bigger so people can see it. How does that look, Mike? Does that look
it's good.
readable?
Yep.
Okay. So if we go to Zechariah, and we go to the first chapter, and this speaks to, as we said in that intro, that these 14 chapters are the 14 final years, 7 years of seals and 7 years of trumpets. And so if we look at the first chapter, we see here in, I think it's verse 12. Then the angel of the Lord answered and said, O Lord of hosts, how long wilt thou have mercy on Jerusalem and on the cities of Judah, against which thou hast had indignation these 70 years, 70 years, these 70 years. But when we go to the end of seals in verse 5, it's talking about speak unto all those of the people of the land and to the priests, saying, when you fasted and mourned, not just mourned, Day of Atonement, when you fasted and mourned in the 5th and 7th month, even those 70 years did you at all fast unto me, even unto me. So all of a sudden, we're talking about the 5th and the 7th month. That's why we showed you on the 5th and the 7th month, which 5th month, which 7th month, which year, when did it start, and when does it end? And it ends this September 19th. So I just wanted to review that briefly. Now we'll go back here. So, so we discussed how the fast of Gedaliah, when it talks about the differences in the Gospels of fasting versus eating and drinking, this is how we made the tie to the fast of Gedaliah. So what I want to do right now is I want to introduce you to Gedaliah, okay? And to do that, probably the best way to go about doing that is to go to, it's not showing up here. Give me 1 second. Okay, here it is. Okay, so to introduce you to Gedaliah, we're going to read from, this is from Josephus. This is from Book 10, Chapter 9. It's titled How Nebuzaradan set Gedaliah over the Jews that were left in Judea, which Gedaliah was a little afterwards slain by, what's this guy's name? Ishmael? Okay, we'll come back to that. went down to Egypt. Anyway, let's learn about this guy. Now, the general of the army, when he had carried the people of the Jews into captivity, so this is the captivity of the Jews. This is the siege from Babylon, taking Israel into captivity, left the poor and those that had deserted in the country, and made one whose name was Gedaliah, the son of Ahikam, a person of noble family, their governor, which Gedaliah was of a gentle and righteous disposition. He also commanded them that they should cultivate the ground and pay an appointed tribute to the king. He also took Jeremiah the prophet out of prison and would have persuaded him to go along with him to Babylon, for that he had been enjoined by the king to supply him with whatsoever he wanted. And if he did not like to do so, he desired him to inform him where he resolved to dwell, and he might signify the same to the king. But the prophet had no mind to follow him, nor to dwell anywhere else, but gladly lived in the ruins of his country and in the miserable remains of it. When the general understood what his purpose was, he enjoined Gedaliah, whom he left behind, to take all possible care of him and to supply him with whatsoever he wanted. So when he had given him rich presents, he dismissed him. Accordingly, Jeremiah abode in the city of that country, which was called Mizpah, and desired of the Nebuzaradan that he would set at liberty his disciple Baruch, the son of Neriah, one of a very eminent family, exceedingly skillful in the language of his country. So what we find out here is we've got Gedaliah. Why is Gedaliah doing all of this? Well, we're gonna find out in 2 Kings what's going on here. But it talks about Gedaliah being persuaded of them that were there to stay with them, and to have no fear of the Babylonians, for that if they would cultivate the country, they should suffer no harm. This he assured them of by oath, and said that they should have him for their patron, and that if any disturbance should arise, they should find him ready to defend them. You know, this is almost starting like they have a helper that's showing up here at the siege of Jerusalem by Babylon. Here comes this guy Gedaliah, who's put in charge of them, and he seems like a pretty friendly guy. He lets Jeremiah out of prison, tells him, "Hey, where do you want to live? What do you need? I'm here to provide anything that you should desire." Now, when this report was spread abroad, Judea, that Gedaliah kindly entertained those that came to him after they had fled away, and that they should pay tribute to the king of Babylon, they also came readily to Gedaliah. So this guy, they weren't afraid of him. They were like, "Hey, maybe this won't be so bad." And he brought all of those people to him. But what ends up happening is, so Johan, the rulers that were with him, not being able to persuade Gedaliah, and what are they telling him? They're telling him that he is in danger. And it says, when after the interval of 30 days was over, Ishmael came again to Gedaliah, and 10 men with him. And when they had feasted, Ishmael and those that were with him in splendid manner at his table, and had then given them presents, became disordered in drink. And anyway, after he had fallen asleep, he suddenly rose up with his 10 friends, and they slew Gedaliah, and all those that were with him at the feast. So this guy named Ishmael, he slays Gedaliah, and what we see, this is out of Josephus, but if we actually go to Scripture, we can see the same story playing out in 2 Kings 25. And what we see down here is, and the captain of the guard took Seraiah the chief, the priest, and Zephaniah the second priest, and out of the city. Anyway, Gedaliah is made governor of Judah, And as for the people that remained in the land, Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had left over them to rule, he made Gedaliah, the son of Ahikam, the son of Shaphan, ruler. And when all the captains of the army and their men heard that the king of Babylon made Gedaliah their governor, they came to Gedaliah, even Ishmael and all of his guys. And Gedaliah swore to them and to their men and said unto them, fear not to be servants of the Chaldees, dwell in the land and serve the king of Babylon, and it shall be well with you. But it came to pass in the 7th month. Remember what we're talking about here. We're talking about the 3rd day of the 7th month, the fast of Gedaliah, that Ishmael, the son of Nethaniah, the son of Elishama of the seed of the royal, came in and 10 men with him and smote Gedaliah that he died, and the Jews and the Chaldees that were with him at Mizpah. So it should be known that Gedaliah's name means Yah has become great. It should be known that he was slain. This is another thing about his name, which means most vehement. Yah the Lord most vehement. Now, those of you that watched the last video, and Charles is taking that through the book of Jonah, chapter 4, where he talked at some length about this vehement wind that comes in, that withers and makes people vomit and various other things, that smote the gourd. What we're saying is, or what I'm saying is that this assassination of Gedaliah, that is the purpose for the fast of Gedaliah, is initiated by Ishmael. And who do we know Ishmael is? Ishmael we know as the affliction, and the affliction is the tribulation. So the affliction comes in and smites Gedaliah, the guy who's there to watch over those that are Jews that have been taken into captivity. And this starts the fast of Gedaliah in the 7th month. Now, we also see that if we go to Jeremiah, and now as we saw in Josephus, that Jeremiah was released from prison when the Jews were taken into captivity, and he was put under the charge of Gedaliah, and he was told that, hey, whatever Jeremiah wants to do, if he wants to stay here, let him, just you stay here with him. If he wants to go there, you go with him. You give him whatever he needs. Well, as we get down into verse 5 here, it says, and now behold, I loose thee this day from the chains. So here's Jeremiah getting released. Judah is going into captivity, and Jeremiah is getting released and said, hey, you can go wherever you want. He's released from the chains which were upon thine hand. And if it seem good unto thee to come with me to Babylon, come, I will look well unto thee. But if it seem ill unto thee to come with me into Babylon, forbear. Behold, all the land is before thee. Whither it seemeth good and convenient for thee to go, thither go. And it says, now while he was not yet gone back, he said, go back also to Gedaliah, the son of Ahikam. Maybe I try to pronounce this again. King of Babylon, hath made governor over the cities of Judah, and dwell with him among the people, or go wheresoever it seemed convenient unto thee. So the captain of the guard gave him victuals and a reward, and let him go. Then went Jeremiah unto Gedaliah, the son of Ahikam, and dwelt with him among the people that were left in the land. Now, in Josephus, it kind of says, like they were roomies. They dwelt together. They roomed together. So we have Jeremiah and Gedaliah at the point that Israel is being taken into captivity, and Jeremiah is let loose. But where does he go? He goes to Gedaliah and dwells with him until the point that Gedaliah is assassinated. And so if we go down to 14, we see that moreover, Johanan the son of Kareah and all the captains of the forces that were in the fields came to Gedaliah and said unto him, Dost thou certainly know that the Baalis, the king of the Ammonites, hath sent Ishmael the son of Nethaniah to slay thee? But Gedaliah the son of Ahikam believed them not. Then the son spake to Gedaliah secretly, saying, Let me go, I pray thee, and I will slay Ishmael the son of Nethaniah, and no man shall know it. Wherefore should he slay thee, that all the Jews which are gathered unto thee should be scattered, and the remnant in Judah perish? So what have we got going on here? We're talking about Jews being scattered, and the remnant in Judah perish. But Gedaliah the son of Ahikam said unto him, Thou shalt not do this thing, for thou speakest falsely of Ishmael. So here you have them warning Gedaliah, hey, this thing, the affliction is on its way, and the affliction is gonna come, and it is gonna slay you. And he says, no, it's not gonna happen as you say. The tribulation is 7 years, and it's really not time, and it could happen anytime. So any time is as good as any other time in the next 2,000 years, or the last 2,000 years, or whatever. Any time is any time, right? So what happens to Gedaliah? He's slain. So if we go into chapter 41, and we see right at the beginning, 41:1. Now it came to pass in the 7th month. Remember, we were talking about the 7th month, Tishri 1, that Ishmael, the son of Nethaniah, the son of this and the seed of whatever, and the king of whoever, and their 10 men, came unto Gedaliah, and there they did eat bread together in Mizpah. They ate bread. Then arose, so this whole thing about the fast of Gedaliah comes from the fact that Gedaliah was slain at the feast. And what's going to happen with the bride? The bride's going to be escaped. They're going to be eating and drinking. And so for 70 years, in the 5th and 7th month, Tishri 3, the Jews fasted in honor of Gedaliah, who was slain at the feast. So let that sink in. The most important thing that we learn about this thing is that Jeremiah is integral to this whole story. Jeremiah is with him. Jeremiah is the one that's sent out of the prison and goes to be with Gedaliah. Well, now let's take a look at the book of Daniel. Okay, so put a pin in that. We're going to go to the book of Daniel, and we're going to see some things.
Put a very large pin in that, a very large one.
Yeah, put a large pin in that one. So, what we learn about in the book of Daniel, and rather than try to take you through all of these scriptures, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this, and then we're going to go. I'll pull these out individually, but if you recall in Daniel, and I'm just going to run briefly through some of these chapters. In chapter 1, you have Daniel that's taken into captivity, and the book of Daniel starts out in the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah. Came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, under Jerusalem and besieged it. In our upcoming video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you in history who was Jehoiakim, who was Nebuchadnezzar, what years did they live, who was related to who slayed who married who, and who begat who. Okay, but for purposes of this video, it should be known that this is the chapter where Daniel is taken into captivity. And we know that he is of a certain age when he's taken into captivity, and he convinces, and he's not taken into captivity by himself. He's got friends with him, and I want to show you this, because this is one of these bombs that came out recently. Is these guys that are with him. And it's not just Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego. We've got Daniel, who's renamed Belshazzar, Hananiah, Shadrach, Mishael, Meshach, Azariah, and Abednego. Now, if you look at each one of their names, and what were we talking about in the prior video? We were talking about the support for the 3 sets of 7 years, which we believe that are coming to an end here on Tishri 1. We've got the 7 years of seals, 6 years of seals, the 7th is rest, 7 years of trumpets, the 7th is rest. Well, when you go to look at the names of some of these people, one of the things that I'd like to point out is that this guy's name is the name of 13 Israelites. 13. And I suppose I can make that bigger. 13 Israelites. 6 years of seals. 7th is rest. 6 years of trumpets. We go into the millennial reign in the Jubilee year. Then when you look at the name of Shadrach, it's one of his companions. Then we go to Mishael, and we see it's one of 3 Israelites. 3 sets of 7. 3 sets of 7 years. 7 years escape. Then we have seals, rapture. Then we have Christ coming back at the end of trumpets, 3. Then we go to Meshach, and we see that he's just an Israelite. Nothing fancy here. Then we go into Mishael. Oh, we already did him. Azariah. And what does it say? Yah has helped Azariah, the name of 19 Israelites. Now, if you were with us in the last couple of videos, you'll know that we talked at great length about the Metonic cycle and how Charles had identified in Stellarium that there's a certain alignment that occurs on July 21st every 19 years, going back to, I think it was 1806.
1887.
1887. Okay. And that happened to be the year that they carved out the original plot for Israel to inhabit when they first were talking about them going back into the land. And this is the last year that Metonic cycle happens. It doesn't happen on July 1st again, ever out into the future, which is quite odd. And so we have 3, we have 13, we have 19, and now we go to Abednego, and he's just the name of 1. So we have Abednego, Shadrach, and Meshach. They're just guys, but all these other guys are telling us 13, 3 sets of 7, 19-year Metonic cycle. And so, this is definitely interesting about Daniel and what is the whole story of chapter 1. those of you that have been on the Daniel diet in your church or whatever will know that this whole chapter is talking about meat. And I believe that this Daniel not taking the king's meat is him rejecting the doctrine. He's rejecting the doctrine of the Babylonians who were worshiping Marduk. You remember they had the statue of Marduk and all of these things. He's rejecting their meat. And so it's interesting that this Daniel chapter 1 is talking about eating and drinking and meat and doctrine, and Daniel rejects all of it. But it talks about how he had understanding, okay? Then when we get into chapter 2, this starts with the second year of Nebuchadnezzar. Now keep in mind, this is the first Nebuchadnezzar. This is when he was originally taken into captivity. And what we're going to find is Daniel was the person who was there to witness the beginning from the captivity all the way through to the point where the Babylonians were conquered, and he ends up in a position of high authority in the Persian kingdom. So he sees the whole thing, which connects him all the way through. So
And
this chapter,
a major part of what Amish is teaching. It's critical to understand that point, is that Daniel was there when this event occurred. He was there during this time frame.
yeah. And you know, doing my research, what we're going to show in the upcoming video is how, you know, there's so much garbage on the internet about, well, Daniel's not even a real person. This isn't really history. This was all made up fables and everything else. And I'm going to prove that to be 100% false, because there is historical records that show who these people were and who their offspring were and who they were married to and all of these other things that tied them to actual historical figures throughout history. But this is where Daniel interprets Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Okay. And if you read about how he does that, he's like, I don't know anything about interpreting dreams. It's just like, hey, God, I need to interpret this guy's dream. Can you give me the answer? Yeah, sure. Here you go. And so he gets the answer to the dream. And of course, that's what sets him up to be promoted in the kingdom. But I think what's interesting about this chapter is you see a lot here about reveal. Remember, we talked a lot about how revealing was to uncover. Here is H1540, to uncover, to depart, to carry away, to reveal. So this is where he gets the image of the beast. And the image of the beast is, I'll show you what the image of the beast is here. That's this guy right here, down here in the bottom. Who's that handsome guy taking on the beast there? Anyway, this is the beast that Daniel saw, and it essentially, he saw the beast systems going out all the way to perpetuity. And then you get to chapter 3, and you have Daniel in the this is him rejecting the beast system, standing up. You know, they all bow down to the beast, and he's the only one standing there not bowing down. And so they take his 3 friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and they throw them in the fiery furnace. Nothing, they don't even have their smell of smoke on their clothes when they come out. So this, I believe this is a picture of the beast system of seals that we're coming into. Then we go into chapter 4, and Nebuchadnezzar has another dream. And the second dream has to do with him. It has to do with Daniel coming in and interpreting this dream about his enemies, being surrounded by his enemies, and he's troubled by it. Nebuchadnezzar is humiliated, and he is sent out to eat grass like a beast. For how long? 7 years. It says 7 times will pass over you. And so he basically loses his mind for 7 years. And I believe that I believe that chapter 3 is a picture of the beast system. Chapter 4 is a picture of possibly trumpets. Then we get to chapter 5. In chapter 5, this is where you have Belshazzar. And what proves that the book of Daniel is not written chronologically is this. Because we're at Belshazzar in chapter 5. Belshazzar is the last Babylonian king. Immediately after that, Belshazzar is killed, and the Persians and the Medes take over. That's where Darius and Cyrus, not the first Cyrus, the like Cyrus II, they take over, and it's the end of the captivity. That's when the decrees and everything go out. So this is at the end of the captivity. But then when we get later, he's back in captivity. So this is how we know this isn't chronological. But in any case, we have the handwriting on the wall. And what's interesting about this handwriting on the wall story, and it's even spoken to in Josephus, is when he's troubled, and his grandmother, whose name was I'll show it in the next video. It's his grandmother that remembers about Daniel. So Daniel's been out of power now in Babylon for some time, because remember when he interpreted the dream, he was given a position of high authority in the Babylon kingdom, and now he's relegated to the Belshazzar doesn't even know who he is, but the grandmother remembers, and she said, "Oh, hey, you need to get this guy because he interpreted Nebuchadnezzar's dream, and it was great." So Nebuchadnezzar comes in, or rather Daniel comes in, and he's able to read the writing. Why is he able to read it? He's able to read it because it's written in a language that he understands. The reason that none of the Chaldeans could read it is they didn't know that language. And none of the people that were under Belteshazzar knew how to read the language that the writing on the wall had written it in. But Daniel comes in, he says, "Oh yeah, I recognize that language. That means mene tekeli parsin. You've been weighed in the balances and found wanting. And by the way, you're already defeated." What's interesting about this is that then commanded Belshazzar, and they clothed Daniel with scarlet. Well, what is that for those of you 14ers out there? What does that mean for you? You know, it's a scarlet robe. And they put a chain around his neck, and they proclaimed concerning him that he should be the third ruler in the kingdom, right? But what happens immediately after this is the Persians come in and they take over. And so here we see the Persians coming in. Here's Darius, and it pleased Darius to set him over the kingdom, 120 princes, which should be over the whole kingdom, and over these 3 presidents, one of whom was Daniel. And as you recall, what happens is that the other 2 presidents are, this is kind of like you have 3 different political parties here. You have 1 Republican and 2 Democrats, or vice versa, or whatever. And the other 2 are like, "Oh, we got to get rid of this guy. He's getting too much. He was preferred above the other presidents because he's obviously knew how to handle things." And so they conspire against him, and they put him in the lion's den through all of this. And it's because of the events of the lion's den that Darius makes the decree that he makes in the first place to begin rebuilding Jerusalem and the temple. If that lion's den thing hadn't happened, it was the miracle of the lion's den that spurred Darius to issue the decree. And so this is that we're going to talk about this decree that's made later in here, because again, this book isn't chronological. Then we get to chapter 7, and this is where in the first year of Belshazzar again, and Belshazzar has a dream, and there's 4 beasts, and this is the vision that Daniel is given. And why this is important is because we're going to, so much of us end time people go right to Daniel 9, and we start spouting off and about this years and that years and everything else. But these are the visitations, the visions that Daniel was given. You remember for Nebuchadnezzar, he told him about all the Babylonians and the Medes and the Persians and the Greeks and the Romans and the feet mixed with miry clay. He gave him that vision. Well, here for Belshazzar, he gets another vision about the end times. And I'm setting this up because in this, there are so many tie-ins with chapter 7 to the book of Revelations. It's almost like he gets the same revelation that John gets about the end time stuff. Now, look at down here. It says, hitherto is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my cogitations much troubled me, and my countenance changed in me, but I kept the matter in my heart. Well, how long did he keep the matter in his heart for? Well, we know that from this point, from Belshazzar until we get to the fact that they're rebuilding Jerusalem, we know that that's 17 years. He kept this in his heart for 17 years. He had the vision, but he had no understanding of it for 17 years. What's interesting about that is 2 things. First of all, we know that from Josephus that Jacob was in Egypt for 17 years. From the time that they moved Jacob from Canaan, where he was, to Egypt, he was there for 17 years. And Daniel kept this in his heart for 17 years. And I was contemplating about this morning. And for me personally, it's been 17 years. It was 17 years ago that I first started studying end time eschatology. And for 17 years, it seemed like it was so far off. We always thought it was around the corner, but it wasn't, because I just didn't have an understanding of it. And as Charles mentioned earlier, we're having understanding now. Is like every 10 minutes there's some new understanding opening up. And so what we find out when we go to Daniel chapter 9 is that, and by the way, chapter 8 is a continuation of the vision and the end times understanding and various other things. But then when we get to chapter 9, this is where things start to get very interesting. It's the first year of Darius. Darius who? Darius the Mede. It said of the seeds of the Medes. Do you remember when Daniel said that there would be the Babylonian head, and then there would be the Medes and the Persians? Well, this is now it's the Babylon was defeated with that feast at Belshazzar, and it's interesting that was a feast that Belshazzar was having when the handwriting on the wall came, and he said, by the way, you're already defeated. You're at the feast, and I'm just telling you, you're already defeated. The guys are already in the garage. You're done. So and that ties us back to Gedaliah, which was the feast that Gedaliah was slain by who? By Ishmael, the affliction, slain at the feast. But now we're in the first year of Darius, and in the future video that we're going to do, we're going to explain why it took so long from Belshazzar to Darius to issue the decree. And part of it was because there was this guy by the name of Cambyses, And Cambyses hated the Jews and didn't want to have anything to do. So he troubled them to keep the rebuilding from happening. And then immediately upon the death of Cambyses, now you have Darius put in charge, and Darius, and we're going to show some things from Josephus that shows why Darius issued the decree. But we just talked about why he issued the decree, because of these events that took place with the lion's den. And you remember at the end of the lion's den when he pulls Daniel out and he says, he delivereth and rescue and worketh signs and wonders in heaven and in earth, who hath delivered Daniel from the power of lions. So this Daniel prospered in the reign of Darius and in the reign of Cyrus the Persian. So you have a Persian and you have a Mede. This is the Medes and the Persians taking over, and this is why the decrees are going out. But Darius issued the decree because of the miracle that he saw in the lion's den. Now, when we get in, this is the first year of Darius the Mede, and in the first year of his reign, check this out. I, Daniel, understood. Do you remember when we did our study on the word Ion 70, and how Zion was the sword of time, but Ion was like the eyes of understanding? Daniel now is understanding. In other words, he got the visions back with Nebuchadnezzar and Belshazzar, but now in the first year of Darius, now he understands. And what does he understand? He understands by the books the number of the years whereof the Lord came to Jeremiah, the prophet, that he would accomplish 70 years in the desolations of Jerusalem. Well, we just talked about Jeremiah and how Jeremiah was hanging out with Gedaliah when Gedaliah was slain. So what we're going to see here, we talked about why the decree's going out to rebuild the temple, but what occurred here is that Daniel got the understanding of the 70 years back when he got, just like John got the revelation information of the end times, but it isn't until the first year of Darius that he understands. He understands by the books of the numbers, the 70 years of the desolation. And we're going to come back to this 70 years. And what we're going to show is how Noah, the story of Noah is hidden in Daniel 9. And Charles is going to show this on the calendar here as soon as I get done. And I set my face unto the Lord and to seek by prayer and supplications with fasting, sackcloth, and ashes. So this is in the first year of Darius. What did we say? The first year of everybody's reign starts when? The 7th month, the first day. Tishri 1, Rosh Hashanah. This is pointing to Tishri 1, Rosh Hashanah, 9-1. When we get to 9-3, think Tishri 3, I set my face unto the Lord to seek by prayer and supplications with fasting. What fasting is he doing? He's doing the fast of Gedaliah. This is all these years later. And the Jewish people that were taken into captivity are now recognizing the fast of Gedaliah. Have you ever heard of Gedaliah and the fast of Gedaliah? I never have. I've heard of Hanukkah. I've heard of the War of the Maccabees and Antiochus Epiphanes and all this other stuff, but I've never heard of Gedaliah. Daniel, our friend Daniel here, was part of that group of Jews that was taken into captivity that was recognizing the fast of Gedaliah on Tishri 3, the fast. And
can I say something real quick? What was awesome about that, this is giving you a time frame, and it like so easy. It says, look here, the first year of Darius, and what have we been saying now for like 2 months? Or Tishri 1 is the new year. Tishri 1 is the accomplishment of 70 years. This is saying right here, Tishri 1, think of Daniel 9 as just Tishri 1. Then you go to Daniel 2, the accomplishment of 70 years in the desolations of Jerusalem. Now everybody thinks, oh, that means they've been destroyed. No, the desolations is how they've been living, right? How things been unfolding. It's not they were being destroyed those 70 years. I see people saying it all the time. They're like, this means destruction. No, but this is where it goes. It's Tishri 1 finishes those 70 years, and that's what our end time ministry has been about. But anyways, go ahead. My bad. I just saw that and I love that connection.
No, that's perfect, because that's exactly what we were talking about here. The fasting of the 5th and 7th month. You see the end of the 6th month, the start of the 7th month. This is exactly where they are at. I'm sorry, I ended a sentence with a preposition, but this is where this is where they are on 9/2. This is the first of the year, the second of the year. This is the fast of Gedaliah that they will fast not. Why? And do you recall from the previous video, why are they fasting not? And it's because Christ had said, can the people of the bride fast while the bridegroom is with them? No, they cannot. Why? Because the bridegroom is with them. Christ is back on earth. That's starting the 40 days. He is back on earth. That's why they fast not in that 71st year. Okay, which begins on Tishri 1, and that shows us where we are right here. So what we find when we read through here is already we're talking about the accomplishment of 70 years, the ion, the 70, and so he gets on his knees and he prays, and this is a great prayer if you're ever looking for a really good prayer. He's interceding for Israel. But now keep in mind, this is in the first year of Darius, right? Where is this? This isn't the year that he was taken into captivity. That was many, many years ago. That was back in Nebuchadnezzar. And I'm going to show in the next video how many generations and how many years and how many people were involved in this. This is like the end of the 70 years. This is not the beginning of the 70 years. So he now at the end of the 70 years, Daniel understands the accomplishment of the 70 years. This is kind of like where we are right now. We're at the end of the 70 years, and now we now understand the accomplishment of those 70 years.
Let that sink in for a second. That's big.
Yeah, that's huge. Charles is going to share with you when I'm done here something that we discovered like 10 minutes before we started this video, and it is going to blow your mind. If your mind isn't blown, I don't know, you might need to check for a pulse, because it's truly amazing. But after he's praying, Gabriel brings an answer. And what is the answer that he talks about? He's bringing the answer that comes forth, and he says he makes him to understand. He informed me and talked with me and said, "Oh damn, no, I'm not coming to give the skill and understanding." You remember the understanding, the meaning of the word ion? But I'm gonna, there's something else that happens here I'm gonna talk about in chapter 10, and we're gonna come back to the 70 weeks here in a second. But when you go to chapter 10, what you see is this is the same time. Chapter 10:1 is the same time as chapter 9. It's sort of like the story of Noah. You remember when we said we had, okay, we have chapter 7, and that's going to give you a broad overview. Then we're going to go back through and we're going to put some more detail in, but we're basically talking about the same time. And how do we know it's the same time? Because Cyrus, the king of Persia, and Darius, the king of Media, king of Darius the Mede, they were contemporaries. They ruled at the same time. And what's interesting is it says a thing was revealed. So we're back to revealed again. Uncover. Depart. Okay. And so we have a revealing that's going on. And it says, in those days, Daniel, I was mourning 3 full weeks. Well, those of you that are of this understanding, what does 3 full weeks remind you of? You have the first 7 of Jacob working for Rachel. Were easy, fast passing years because he was so in love with her. Those were the easy years. Then she escapes and goes into the bridal chamber with him, Leah, the older sister. Then he fulfills her week and works 7 more years to get Rachel. That's the second week. Then you have the third week, which is trumpets for the cattle and the men for Judah. And those are the 3 weeks that's being alluded to here in Daniel 2. Then again, you get to Daniel 3. I ate no pleasant bread, neither came flesh or wine into my lips. What's he doing? He's fasting. On day 3, the third day, the fast of Gedaliah. And in the 4th and 20th day, in the first month, as I was by the side of the great river, so we're talking about the 24th day, then I lifted up my eyes, and behold, a certain man clothed in linen, whose loins were girded with fine gold and upas and all this other stuff. So what is he seeing here? Yeah, we know that we know from chapter 9 that he was praying and Gabriel showed up to bring him an answer. But what's going on here? This isn't Gabriel. This is, he saw a vision of men that were with me, saw not the vision, and there was a quaking that fell. So he's fasting, and there all of a sudden we have an earthquake being mentioned. And who's in front of him? It's Christ. And he's so awestruck that he can't even speak. The angel has to touch his lips before he can even speak. And what does Gabriel tell him? Gabriel tells him, hey, look, we would have come sooner, but the prince of Persia withstood us. Okay, so prince of Persia, this is Iran. So now all of a sudden we have war breaking out with Iran. And he withstood him how many days? 21 days, 3 full weeks. But Michael was one who came with him, and he remained there with them, with the kings of Persia. Now I come to make thee understand. Do you remember the ayin? Ayin meaning eyes to understand. Ayin being the word for 70. What shall befall thy people in the latter days? Okay, so we know that this is occurring at the end of the 70, where the decree is going out to rebuild Jerusalem. Okay, and this isn't the first work that went out to rebuild Jerusalem. When you read about Haggai and Zerubbabel and everything else, they had to be encouraged to restart the project because Cambyses troubled them until Cambyses died. But so this is the end of the 70. This is for future. This isn't the 70 years that's leading up. This is future. And so he's understanding that it's for the later days, for yet the vision is for many days. And when he had spoken these words, I set my face to the ground and became dumb. And he has sorrows, and the servant of my Lord talked with his Lord, for as me straightway there remained no strength in me, neither was any breath left in me. Then there came again and touched me one like the appearance of a man. So this is not a man, and he strengthened me. So I would submit to you, this is Christ on earth strengthening the church to go through seals. And so I'll tie this to seals in a second here. And one said, "Oh man, greatly beloved, fear not, peace be unto thee, be strong, strengthen. I was strengthened. Let my Lord speak, for thou hast strengthened me." And when they get down here, they say, well, thou knowest therefore I come, and now I will return to fight the prince of Persia. There's a war going on with Iran. And when I am gone forth, lo, the prince of Grecia will come. Well, Grecia, what does this mean? Also, a place in Arabia. Arabia? Could that be Saudi Arabia? So we have Iran coming at them, and now we've got Saudi Arabia shall come. The rest of the Ishmael brothers are going to come. So even though what you've been seeing in the news of late about, hey, we're going to start flying planes into Jerusalem, well, that's great. I just hope none of them come just loaded with explosives or ammonium nitrate, like what happened up in Lebanon. Yeah. So so that's chapter 10. So now if we go back to chapter 9, and again, this is the same thing. Now we have this discussion of the 70 weeks, and you'll remember how there was a purpose of these 70 weeks. And these aren't just 70 weeks. These are a week specifically of years. These are 70 years, and these are the same 70 years that's spoken about in Psalm 90, when we get to, and the days of our years are 70, and if by reason of strength they be 80, that 10 years is seals and the first half of trumpets. Yet is there strength, sorrow, and labor, for it's soon cut off, and we fly away. This is where the 144,000 are essentially rescued and taken away and hidden from Satan, who is cast down to the earth. When? After the 80th year. So this is the tribulation cannot be 7 years. Teach us to number our days. We have to understand this. And this is what we were seeing was Daniel being made to understand. Now I got to find Daniel again. That's Old Testament, right? Yeah. Okay. So we have this discussion, and what does he say? There's two things in here. It says to make an end, which means especially to seal and mark, seal. And then it also says, if you didn't miss that, if you forgot to click on the definition of that word, it says to seal up the vision, to make an end, to start seals. Okay. And so now what I want to do is I want to explain this 24 days rather. And from this 24 days, and I don't know if you can see this or not, but those
if you didn't share.
Am I sharing?
No.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Mike. I thought I was sharing. Let's try that on for size. Okay. So from Tishri 1, which is the Rosh Hashanah, you see right here, Rosh Hashanah. On day 3, the fast of Gedaliah, he begins fasting. Okay. And he fasts for 3 full weeks, all the way down to the 24th day. And what does that day happen to be? Well, he started up here He didn't start fasting on Rosh Hashanah. He started on the third day, the fast of Gedaliah. And he fasted all the way through Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, all the way through Tabernacles, Sukkot. He fasted through Shimni Atzeret, which our friend Charles tells us is the great day of assembly. He fasts all the way through rejoicing with the Torah, and he finishes his fast after all of the feasts are done in here, and that puts us right here on day 24. Well, this is something interesting about day 24 because it also happens to be on Noah's count of the 150 days. It's the 127th day on the Noah count. Well, if we go to back here, where remember, this wasn't in chronological order. It pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 princes, which should be over the whole kingdom, and over these three presidents to give an account to. And there's another tie-in with the 127 that we're going to show in the next video. But for now, because we're not giving all the information in this video, let's see, we covered that. This is something that's going to blow your mind. So let's go to, let me find it here first. Stop sharing. We're going to go back to our friend Josephus. Yeah, okay. Let's see, it's this one. Okay, do you see this?
Yep.
Now, if I did this right, and I go down to chapter 2. In the first year of the reign of Cyrus, do you remember we were just reading in chapter 10 about the third year of Cyrus? The first year of Cyrus, which was the 70th from the day that our people were removed out of their own land into Babylon. God commiserated with the captivity and the calamity of these people and so on and so forth, foretold them by Jeremiah the prophet. This is the guy that was released from prison with Gedaliah and all that. Before the destruction of the city, that after they had served Nebuchadnezzar and his posterity, that they were going to go servitude 70 years. Weren't we just reading about 70 years? Those 70 years were the 70 years from when Daniel was taken into captivity until Cyrus, right? And so this is interesting. It says, and these things God did afford them, for he stirred up the mind of Cyrus and made him write this throughout all Asia. Thus saith Cyrus the king, since God Almighty had appointed me to king of the habitable earth, I believe that he is God which the nation of the Israelites worship. For indeed he foretold my name by the prophets that I should build him a house at Jerusalem in the country of Judea. Now, this guy, first of all, he's Cyrus the Persian. The Medes, Darius is the Mede. So he's not king of all the habitable earth. This sounds like something maybe a current president might say, you know, as boasting. This guy's got a pretty healthy ego here at this point. And we're going to learn some more things about Cyrus too, that'll point that way. But this was known to Cyrus by his reading the book which Isaiah left behind him of his prophecies. For this prophet said that God had spoken thus to him in a secret vision. My will is that Cyrus, whom I have appointed to be king over many and great nations, send back my people to their land and build my temple. This was foretold by Isaiah 140 years before the temple was demolished. Think about this. 140 years. 2 sets of 70. 70 plus 70, 140 years Isaiah prophesied. 7 years of seals, 7 years of trumpets, 14 years altogether. Isaiah foretold this 140 years before the temple was demolished. And Cyrus knew about the prophecy ahead of time and it says, accordingly, when Cyrus read this and admired the divine power, an earnest desire and ambition seized upon him to fulfill whatso was written. So he called for the most eminent Jews that were in Babylon and said to them that he gave them leave to go back to their own country and rebuild the city of Jerusalem. Now, I ask you, does this sound like anything like what's going on today? There's a certain president that has been compared to Cyrus so much to the point that they've made a coin of him with Cyrus on one side and this guy on the other. And he knew about the prophecy and had earnest desire and ambition to fulfill whatso was written. I'm just putting it out there. And it has to do with rebuilding the temple and rebuilding Jerusalem. So we talked about that. Okay, we did that. And okay, we talked about that. And I introduced you to Gedaliah. And at this point, that I think is all I have. So I'm going to hand it back over to you, Charles, right?
Yes. Charles, you there, bud?
Yeah, my mic was muted. Yeah, good job, Amish. It was very thorough and to the point, and there's so much more, and that's the thing. We have, like I said, this is probably about 25% of all that we were going to teach, and there's a lot more. So we're going to have to make video number 2 and maybe video number 3 because the information it keeps pouring in. And Amish laid out a fantastic story, which is in fact all true. And the main part to get out of what he's teaching is something that we uncovered throughout our studies during the last several days, is that Daniel was in fact there during the actual days that Gedaliah was there. Daniel was there during the actual days of Jeremiah. Jeremiah, in fact, lived with Gedaliah, just like Amish laid out for us. So all 3 of them knew each other. This is the very important fact. You know, when you start reading Daniel 9 and 10, and you go to some of these other ministries, they're all over the place with this. Some are thinking it's 490-year prophecy. Some are thinking Daniel's talking about the destruction of the temple in 70 years. You know, a lot of ministries have this thing completely out of perspective. And as Amish said, even some
We lost you there for a sec, Charles.
places they teach that Daniel's locations. What we're able to prove here today is that Daniel, Gedaliah, and Jeremiah all lived during the exact same time frame. And in fact, Daniel was most likely there when Gedaliah was killed. And what we're going to show is the reason they're fasting and mourning, even currently, all these years since that time, a few thousand years ago, a couple thousand years ago, is because there was a Gedaliah that was killed, and Daniel was there, and Daniel did the very first mourning and fasting of Gedaliah, like Amish showed from Tishri 1 through Tishri 24. And that's what we're going to lay out next. I'm going to share my screen with you guys and show you what we have. And I'm going to put all the dates out there so you can see everything. So what we have is our original calendar, and Amish, kind of showed that and went over the time frames of where we are, and I'm pointing to Tishri 1 here. This is the beginning of the new year, and then into Tishri 3 where Daniel 10 kicks in and he starts talking about his fasting and mourning, and all the way down to Tishri 24 down here. And we have this all laid out on the bigger part of the calendar, but like I said, for everyone's convenience and to to just focus in on Daniel and Noah, I made another tab down here I'm pointing to in the bottom. And that is this calendar, but only the stuff that pertains to Noah and Daniel. So it's easier for everyone to follow. And yes, I know I still have a lot of stuff on here, but all of this that you're looking at only pertains to the Daniel story and the Noah story. And we're going to show the actual dates of how they parallel each other. So let's begin, and I'm going to try to be as brief as possible because we still have a little bit more to teach here, and Mike's got a spectacular part of his video that he needs to put on. What we're showing here, if you look at these dates, the evening of June 7th to the 8th, this is important. Why? Because when you go to Genesis 7:11, that's interesting, 7:11. Okay, when you go to verse in Genesis 7:11, it tells us that the second month, 17th day, is the day that the flood began. And that puts us right into the evening of June 7th to the 8th. And that's how the Jews count their days. They go from evening to evening. So that's right here. So the flood story begins here. And what we're going to show you is that the exact same dates, literally the same dates, not just the roundabout time frame or give or take a couple days, but the exact same dates of Noah is the exact same, literally same dates playing out in the story of Daniel 9 and Daniel 10. And so let's begin that. So like I said, the Noah story, the flood story begins right here, second month, 17th day. So how do we know about Daniel 9 being this same date? And Amish kind of went over that, but I'm going to just go over it just briefly, just to show you where we're at. We're going to go to Daniel 9:2. It says, in the first year of his reign, I, Daniel, understood by the books the number of years whereof the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah the prophet, that he would accomplish what? 70 years in the desolations of Jerusalem. And we've taught this many times, but in brief, what's going on is this. Since Daniel knew the books of Jeremiah and they all knew each other, he knew the books of Jeremiah. They were all talking to each other back at those times. And they were already talking to Gedaliah. He understood that Jeremiah had 52 books. So he said, I understood the years by the book. So he knew there was going to be 52 years to go until what? Until 70 years were completed. And what did we teach before? That Israel completed their 70 years on March the 10th this year. They completed 70 years. So this part is true. It's 70 years. But when did they complete the 52 years? Well, that's on our calendar here that we show. That on June 7th, this is the critical part, on June 7th, 1967, Jerusalem was recaptured and brought back into Israel. Israel recaptured Jerusalem for the first time in thousands of years, and they brought back Jerusalem into Israel. And so when you count 52 years from this June 7th date, that brings you to the accomplishment of 70 years. We are now about to finish the 70th year of Israel right now on Tishri 1. And so we know for a fact now, we've absolutely proved that the Noah story begins on this date, and that's what Daniel is pointing to also. He is literally pointing, and you know why it's the evening? Because if you go back and read the story about the 6-day war, they recaptured Jerusalem in the evening just before sunset. So it's another evening to evening story. It's the same exact time frame that Jerusalem came back to Israel. It's the exact same date that the flood story begins. And so what do we have? Why is this date important? The 4th month, 9th day. Because remember, Daniel knew Gedaliah and he also knew Jeremiah. He studied his books. What does Jeremiah say in the 52nd book? Why the 52nd book, the 52nd chapter? Because he understood by the 52 years that would be the year, that would be the book that gives him the clue of where everything starts. And what does it say in Jeremiah 52? It says, the 4th month, 9th day, the famine was sore in the land and Israel was surrounded. If you go and read Jeremiah 52, that's what it says. So this is a key marker date. And the reason it's a key marker date is because it's the 100th day on the Enoch calendar. And when you count 50 more days from that date, which we've all been looking at end times ministry for 50 days, you see this 50 days I'm pointing to? It brings us to Tishri 1. That's the 50 days we were looking for, the beginning of the new year. When the new year will begin, when we're looking for the day of the escape, I'm sorry, the day that Christ returns to earth on Tishri 1. And this is what Amish was teaching in Daniel 10. When he had the vision, when he was done fasting and mourning, Christ appeared to him. So we're going to prove all this up. But let's just go one at a time. Like I just showed the very beginning of this, the Daniel story and the Noah story literally start out on the same day, and we just proved that. And the next date that we're looking for is this date, the 4th month, 9th day on the Enoch calendar. And this is important to understand because when Noah was on the ark, he didn't have a Gregorian calendar. He didn't have a Julian calendar. He didn't have a Hebrew calendar. He had his great-grandfather's calendar, the Enoch calendar. And that's why these dates, 2nd month, 17th day, 4th month, 9th day, they're playing out exactly the way they're supposed to. Because he laid out his adventure on the ark on the Enoch calendar. So let's go on and prove out the rest of Daniel and Noah being on the same dates. So when you follow the story of Noah, what happens next? He tells us in Genesis 7:24 that the waters prevailed for 150 days. When you go to the Enoch calendar and you count the 150th day, it's Tishri 1. It's the new year. This is the day that Noah's pointing to. There's no mistake about it. When you lay out the Enoch calendar, day 1 up here, day 1 of the flood is over here. But on the Enoch calendar, when you lay out how many days it was from the very beginning of the year, it's the 150th day to Tishri 1, the new year, the day we're expecting Christ to be on earth. So right there by itself is the absolute proof that Noah was in fact using the Enoch calendar. Because when you go to this verse, it literally points out that it's the 150th day on the calendar he was using. So how does this relate to Daniel? This is the most interesting find that we're going to show you, because we're going to prove right now in the next minute, for the first time in history, you're going to understand why this story of Daniel lines up with the exact beginning date and the ending date of the Noah story. You want to know how we're going to prove this? Tishri 1 is in Daniel 9. Watch this. What does it say in the beginning of Daniel? In the first Daniel 9:1, as if this was Tishri 1, we're going to prove that this count in Daniel is a day-by-day count down the calendar. But I'm going to get back to that. Watch how we're going to prove what the year is. In the first year of Darius, now wait a minute, it's his first year, right? And what have we taught before? That every king during those days was always crowned on when? Tishri 1. And how are we going to prove that? What does it say here? Which was made a king over the realm of the Chaldeans. This is the exact date that he was made king. Not only is it telling you it's his first year, but this is the day he was made the king, on Tishri 1, because all kings are crowned. Back in those days, they were all crowned on Tishri 1. So we know, we can absolutely prove by those verses that the king in Daniel, Darius, was in fact crowned on Tishri 1, the same 150th day in the Noah story. We have just now proven to you, without a shadow of a doubt, that Daniel begins on the same day of the Noah story, and the story in Daniel 9 ends on the same day in the Noah story, precisely. You want to see how we know more than that? Watch this. What should play out on Tishri 3? When did Daniel start fasting and mourning? You want to see the day count? Remember we said this was Daniel 9:1, Tishri 1, when the king was crowned on Tishri 1. Shouldn't we see a fasting and mourning starting then on Tishri 3, which would be Daniel 9:3. Watch this. So Daniel 9:1, he tells us it's the first year of this king. We just showed that was 9:1, Tishri 1. In in Daniel 2, what's he doing? He's laying out the number of the years. He's telling us like a pre-story, like before the story begins, he's going to tell us how the years lay out. What does it say in Daniel 3? Daniel 3, as if this was Tishri 3. And I set my face unto the Lord God to seek by prayer and supplications with fasting and sackcloth and ashes. 9:3, Tishri 3. He's beginning the fasting and mourning precisely on Tishri 3, which begins the fasting and mourning of Gedaliah, just like Amish taught us. So Tishri 3 is Daniel 9:3. The fasting and mourning begins on this date. And it's so important to understand. This is a critical moment of what we're teaching you right now. So let me show you something else. What we're going to find throughout this teaching is that by Tishri 1, the entire story, not the entire story, but the story of Daniel 9 and Genesis 7 are laid out all prior and up to Tishri 1. When we get past Tishri 1, now Genesis 8 and Daniel 10 begin. And you'll see that. You'll see how it all lays out precisely. So prior to Tishri 1 and up to Tishri 1 is Daniel 9 and Genesis 7. After Tishri 1, after the new year, it's Genesis 8 and Daniel 10. And this is very, very important to understand. Now, when we get to Daniel, let's go back to Daniel 9:2. What's he saying? So we know it's what? It's Tishri 1, because the king was crowned on this day. What happens on that day? It's the new year. And what does he say in Daniel 9:2? That they accomplish the 70 years. Accomplish, which means the 70 years are finished. The 70 years are finished when? Right here, Tishri 1. Israel, that's their new year. They're going to go from 5780 to 5781. This proves that this date is Daniel 9:1, the very first day of the year when they crowned their kings. And he's telling us in Daniel 9:2 that it's also going to be the accomplishment of 70 years. This is where the Lord's counting from. The Lord will complete, Israel will complete 70 years on this date. Daniel lays it out for us. In Daniel 9:2, he tells us this is the accomplishment of the 70 years. It is literally Israel's new year. They're going to go from 5780 to 5781. We have now proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that the Genesis 7 and Genesis 9 story literally play out from June 7th through September 19th, Tishri 1, day by day. Now, let's go back into Daniel 9 for just a moment. If we're saying this is Tishri 1, which we just showed it is, and 9:3 begins the fasting and mourning, how many days did he fast and mourn? 21 days. So shouldn't we see that here playing out in 9:24? Daniel 9:24 should be the ending of his fasting and mourning. Watch this. There it is. 70 weeks are determined by the holy people upon the holy city to finish the transgression. His fasting and mourning has been completed in Daniel 9:24, which we're saying is Tishri 24. And we're going to prove this out in Daniel 10, because Daniel 9 is setting up the story and giving us the small details of what happens just before chapter Daniel 9:10 starts. And we're going to get into that in just a second. But understand what we're saying, that this 9:3, when he begins his fasting and mourning, and you count the 21 days that Amish talked about and walked through with us, it brings us to Daniel 9:24, the completion of the 70 years. The fasting and mourning is over with, and now the prophecy is about to go right into Daniel 10, and it's going to show us the details of how Daniel, in fact, saw Christ on the 24th day, just like Amish showed us. Okay, so let's go into the remainder of this story now. What do we find happening here? Like I said, when you go through everything prior to Tishri 1, it's Daniel 9 and Genesis 7, and after that is Genesis 8 and Daniel 10. So we should see that playing out. If that's true, we should see it all playing out here. Watch this. So what happens? We're at Tishri 3. Daniel begins his fasting and mourning. Where do we find this story continuing on at? Daniel 10. Watch this. Let's go to Daniel 10 real quick. Let me move some things over on my screen. Now we're in the 3rd year of Cyrus. And Amish taught about this, and I think he's going to go into a little bit more detail into the next video about all these kings and how they're related in this timeline. But that's, like I said, for another video. And he knew that the time was appointed was long, but he understood the thing. And what does he say? In those days, I, Daniel, was mourning 3 full weeks. And it talks about what? I ate no pleasant bread, neither came flesh nor wine in my mouth, neither did I anoint myself at all, till 3 whole weeks were fulfilled. Here we are again, Daniel 10:3. And where's that on our chart? Tishri 3. Remember, I said everything after Tishri 1 begins Daniel 10. He's back here again. He's retelling the story now, but he's going to tell us what happened in Daniel 10. He's going back to Daniel 9, but he's reiterating now what happened during his 21 days of fasting and mourning. And Daniel 10:3 is right here, Tishri 3. He's telling us what's going on. He's fasting and mourning. So shouldn't we find that playing out in the rest of Daniel? When we get to Daniel, let's see. Here it is. In Daniel 10:4, now he's telling us, he's concluding, he's telling us where he's at. And in the 24th day of the 1st month, as I was by the side of the great river Hiddekel, and this is what Amish taught us, and behold, he saw a certain man clothed in linen, whose loins were girded with fine gold of Elpaz. His body was like a beryl, and his face appearance of lightning. And Amish taught about this. Who's he seeing? Who's he seeing at that time? Jesus Christ. Right here, he gave us the date, 1st month, 24th date on the Enoch calendar. Remember this. I want you to see that. And then what? It's the 24th day. He's fast. From here was the 1st day of the fasting and mourning, Tishri 3. Add 21 days to Tishri 3, and you're at Tishri 24. Who's here? Aren't these part of the 40 days when Jesus is here? And now he's seeing Jesus Christ on the 24th day? Christ has already been here for 24 days.
This is why Charles, this is why they can't fast on those days, because the bridegroom is with them. And,
that's right.
And it says that they fast not. And the reason they fast not is because he makes them sit down and he feeds them. And that's what ties into the whole feeding of the 5,000 and the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes and all of that.
Right. Now here's an important part to get out of this too, listen to what Amish just said. It's because they fast not. Why? Because the bridegroom is here. We've taught this in our last couple of videos. Jesus Christ will be here. Tishri 1, September 19th, will be his 1st day back on earth, teaching for 40 days. And you can go back to our last video and see this.
Yeah, and that's for those of you, because I saw a comment on the chat about the escape is going to occur on September 11th, not on Tishri 1.
That's right.
Christ is returning from the wedding when he starts his 40 days here, and that's why they are fasting not. The bride during that wedding is eating and drinking. And that's the differences in the Gospels between where one of them says, where Luke says they're eating and drinking, the other 2 Gospels say they're just not fasting.
Right.
And that's why in Luke it says, be ready from when he returns from the wedding.
That's right. That's correct. And this is what we're talking about here, is what Amish is saying, and Mike. September 11th is the day of the escape. And that's Jesus Christ's birthday, September 11th in 3 BC. There's a 7-day wedding that's going to play out. We're not going to be here. We're going to be escaped. And notice the difference between September 11th and September 19th is 8 days. But we said there's a 7-day wedding. What's the 8th day? The 8th day, right here, is when the Lord Jesus Christ returns from the wedding. That's what Mike was talking about. This 8th day he returns, and so now he's going to be here on earth for 40 days. So what we're saying is this. Let's get back to the story that Amish was teaching. Why? This is critical. You need to pay attention to this. This is a bombshell. Why is Daniel fasting and mourning anyways on Tishri 3? Because his friend Gedaliah was killed. This is why Daniel was fasting and mourning. He knew Jeremiah. He knew Gedaliah. He started fasting and mourning right here. In Daniel 10, Daniel fasts and mourns for 21 days. The angel was delayed these 21 days because the war in Persia has begun. Wait a minute. That's what the angel tells Daniel in Daniel 10. I'm sorry I was delayed 21 days, but I was fighting the king of Persia. Wait a minute. If he was delayed 21 days because he's fighting the king of Persia, then guess what? Israel was already attacked. Israel was already attacked. Gedaliah is killed somewhere around this time frame, and on Tishri 3, Daniel begins his fasting and mourning. It's a type and shadow of what's going on. The angel says he's been fighting the king of Persia, so Israel must have been attacked, and we're going to go into this in Mike's segment. I don't want to ruin his segment, but he's going to teach about the attack and what happens and what's going on. But Daniel's fasting and mourning because his friend Gedaliah was killed. He fasts and mourns 21 days. On the 21st day of his fasting, which is Tishri 24, Christ appears to him. He sees Jesus Christ. You want to know why this is important to the Noah story? You want to see how we're going to prove both stories are parallel? What happens? This day on Tishri 1 is what? Where do we find that in the Noah story? It's Genesis 8:13. What does he tell us in 8:13? On the 601st year, on the first day of the first month, right here, he's talking about New Year's. In the Genesis story of Noah, he's telling us this is the first day, first month. It's the 601st year. The new year has changed. So now we know Genesis 8:13 is talking about this date. But what does it say also? What does it say? It says that the year when Noah removes the cover of the ark. In the 601st year, Noah removes the cover of the ark. When you look up 601 in Strong's, it means to take off the cover. And that's what Noah did. He took off the cover. We didn't make this up. It's in Scripture. So when Noah says it's the 601st year, it's a type and shadow. It's a clue to go look up what 601 means in Strong's. It means take off the cover. And that's what Noah does. He takes off the cover when? On New Year's. When does Christ be revealed? On New Year's. The revealing of Jesus Christ, the taking off the cover, the revealing of Jesus Christ will occur on Tishri 1, day 1, when he's back here on earth. You want to see how this relates to Daniel? The exact same time, the exact same day. What's that? Tishri 24. We just read it in Daniel. What did it say? Let's read it again. What is he saying? Go back here to verse 4. And in the 24th day, 24th day of the first month, who does he see? Jesus Christ. And that's what we just showed you. It's right here. Christ is here. He did what to Daniel? Jesus Christ has revealed himself to Daniel. On this first day, the ark is uncovered. Jesus Christ is uncovered and revealed on day 1. Daniel, in Daniel 10, Christ has also been revealed to him. We have now absolutely emphatically proven that Daniel 9 and Daniel 10 is an overlaid story right on top of the story of Noah. and it's covering the exact same days. And the bombshell of this, and I want everyone to study this and review this video and review this chart that we laid out, this calendar. What's going on? What's the big punchline of this whole story? The ark is being revealed on day 1. Jesus Christ is being revealed. Strong 601, take off the cover. And Daniel, during this same time frame, is having Jesus Christ revealed to him. I say to all of you, take heed, take warning, take notice. There's no other date. This date will not miss. Jesus Christ will be revealed on day 1, Tishri 1, where he'll be back on earth for 40 days. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike real quick.
All right. Let me get this over here so you guys can see. Let me share my screen. I'm gonna do this one. Yeah, share. All right. Well, let me do this. Let me make sure before I start here. Let me exit this. Sorry. All right. So, oh, how do I even begin this? Okay, so we've all already been told what we're looking for here in September, right? The beginning part of September, the end of September. September is in the 6th month of the Hebrews, and it's also in the 7th month. So I'm just going to start with that. So remember, it's filling the 6th and the 7th month. And what I'm going to show you guys first is I'm going to go ahead and pull it to Esau real quick, and I'm going to go to Luke and try to give you a kind of idea of where I'm at. So Amos or Charles, one of those two, talked about this before in one of our previous videos, that the days of Noah, right? This is when Jesus said he would be here as the Son of Man, right? In the days of Noah. Then it also said, likewise also as it was in the days of Lot. They did eat, they drink, they built, they bought, they sold, they builded. So this is saying while you can build, while you can eat freely, while you can drink, while you could do all this stuff, right? It's coincided with the days of Noah, right? So that's why it says likewise also. There's a bunch of different meanings where you go through Genesis, and we have Genesis 7, 14, 21, how that shows the timeline in 21 years. But this is clearly telling us that two stories are overlain. The story of Lot and the story of Noah. And this is so big. I just, you can't make this stuff up, what I'm going to show. And so we know in Genesis, I'm going to go ahead and go to Genesis 8 real quick. Genesis 8:1. God remembered Noah. And I'm just going to tie these two stories in again. God remembered Noah and every living thing. This is when you could say the bride is getting onto the ark. This is that type and shadow. But God also remembered, if we're looking at a type and shadow of Noah, he must have remembered Lot. Right? So what if God did in fact, what was it? Is it 17? It's not here. Nope. One of these two. I'm sorry. How did I forget which one? Maybe it's 19. Yes. Okay, I'm sorry. So right here, and God remembers Abraham. Right? What does he remember Abraham? That he was getting Lot out of Sodom and Gomorrah. Now I'm going to just leave that right there. So you have God remembering Abraham. You have God remembering Noah. You have Luke 17, that's pointing to Jesus Christ being here as the Son of Man, not Jesus Christ the Messiah, but as the Son of Man for 40 days, because he says, I'll be here like Jonah was to the Nineveh. Jonah was assigned to the Ninevites for 40-day warning. So he's saying he's going to be here for 40 days, as in the days of Noah, likewise also in Lot. So this is in the book of Jubilees, guys. This is an apocryphal book, but I'm pretty sure all you guys are familiar with the book of Jubilees. And I just want to point out something. This starts with the new moon on the 4th month, when he appeared unto Abraham. So when was that, guys? If you think about that, that was July. I want to say, was it 21st, 22nd? Or
Hey,
8th.
hey,
Okay.
Mike,
Yep.
can you zoom in on that a little bit? It's coming through pretty small.
Is it coming through small? Let me see if I don't. Blah blah blah.
What date are you looking for, Mike?
The new moon, the 4th month. The new moon on the 4th month. I don't
Oh,
have the
okay.
calendar.
That's the new chart that we got, and
Yeah.
it's the 4th month. That's the metatonic cycle. That's July 21.
Yeah. So that was July 21. This is starting on where he said, "I appeared unto Abraham," or
That's correct.
yeah. So look at this, and I'm gonna just skip down right here. He says, and when he goes, when we returned to her at a set time, she would conceive a son. This is when God's telling, or the angels are telling Sarah, you're gonna have a son, and she laughed, and they're like, oh, why are you laughing? She's like, oh, I didn't laugh. He's like, yes, you did. You're gonna call your son Isaac, which means laughter. And then notice here, and guys, this is so crazy. He says, when they returned to her, she would have conceived a son. When they return, she would have conceived a son, right? And the Lord said, in this month, he would execute judgment on Sodom and Gomorrah. So you have the angel saying, by the time they return, she would have conceived a son. And in that same month, judgment would fall on Sodom and Gomorrah. Oh, man, this is so good. So this says right here, and this is when Abram departed moved from Hebron and went and departed, dealt in whatever, all the mountains. This is right before mountains of Gear. I'm not good with all these things, but it says, in the middle of the 5th month, he moved from then and hence, went and dwelt at Oath. And in the middle of the 6th month, right here, and in the middle of the 6th month, the Lord visited Sarah and did unto her as spoken. In the 6th month, she conceived. So this means she's conceiving. She just got pregnant. If we're in the 6th month, guys, and the Lord's saying that he's going to exercise judgment in this same time, right? When he conceived, when she conceives, let me go down a little bit more. And they could circumcise the 8th day. All right. And at this time, which the Lord had spoken, according to, in the 5th, yeah. We appeared unto Sarah. Okay. And this is saying when they appeared unto Sarah and told her that she would conceive, she would have a son, right? But this is in the 6th month. And if we look at that same type and shadow, and I was getting tongue-tied here, but if you look at the same month, we're in the 6th month now. We're not in the 7th month, right? It's not Tishri 1. We're in the 6th month. And if he's saying and this is Sarah, she was conceived in the 6th month, and she actually had Isaac, I want to say, Savan 15, so that's 9 months later. But in the month she would conceive, which is, I forget the 6th month, what's before Tishri. What is that month? Tishri, or whatever, the month before Tishri, that's when Sodom and Gomorrah would fall judgment on. So if you look at that same type of shadow, that's right now coming up to September 11th. And what is all the stories you've heard about is people having dreams of people we're getting raptured or escaped on a day where bombs are falling or something big, or there's tsunamis. This is saying that on this 6th month, judgment's going to fall on Sodom and Gomorrah. That's right now. That's the 6th month, September. We're in the half of September. And this is what the book of Jubilee is saying. So it's like, it's not what we think it is or what we want it to be. This is saying that if you go back, let me go back again, get out of here. And in this month, the same month, he's going to execute judgment on Sodom and Gomorrah. That's right now. So let's go back to the Bible real quick. Nope, it was this one. So you have that same typology going on. You have judgment falling, right? But then you have the story of Lot. So you have something happening to Sodom and Gomorrah in the 6th month before Tishri 1, before the date that Amish and them were showing you when Jesus would be here. So something big befalls Sodom and Gomorrah, we know that's America. We could say that's also Jerusalem. There's parts, types of shadows everywhere. So something big happens. Could that be the rapture, the escape of the bride event taking place at the same time bombs are falling? Because look at this story. This is the story of Lot when the angels go. When the angels go to Lot. And it says, in the morning the angels hastened to Lot, saying, arise, take thy wife and 2 daughters, which were here, and thou, lest thou be consumed in iniquity of the city. And while he lingered, he laid hold upon his hand. So the angels are grabbing Lot and his family by the hand, and they're taking them out of the cities. This is the escape. At the same time, judgment is falling. So you have an escape as judgment's falling at the same time. And you can't just make this stuff up. This is all just, it piles on itself, and that's what we've been finding the whole time, is just more and more of things just throwing themselves at you. So it's like, how could you be, with all this information that we just keep getting, it's like, man, it's just, how at any other point in history could this be, right? So clearly, I'm going to just look at this again. So in this period, the angels tell Sarah, right, you're going to have a child. She laughed. Then she was admonished, and they said, call your son Isaac. And he says, and when we return to her at a set time, when they return, she would have conceived a son. That's when she would, get pregnant. And in this month, the Lord executes judgment. So then we go to the next chapter, and we see here that the Lord, and in the middle of the 6th month, the Lord visited Sarah and did unto her as spoken, and she conceived. So in that same month, Sodom and Gomorrah is destroyed. So that means between now and September 18th, Sodom and Gomorrah's got to get destroyed, right? So this is before the month of Tishri, so this is before the next year. So tell me how that week we're looking for, whereas to fulfill her week, how we go on the ark 7 days before, it's all showing right there, and it's phenomenal. And here I'm going to show you something else which we found, and that's all I'm going to say on that story. Did I leave anything out off, Charles? Because I know earlier I was rambling.
You got that correct. You nailed it. It's perfect.
Okay, cool. I just want to make sure I didn't forget anything. I get excited, and then I get brain farts. So Amish and I were doing some discussing. Let's see, when were the genealogies? What was genealogies? Did I not highlight? What was genealogies, guys? What chapter? I'm not as Amish, you there? Amish, my main man.
Yeah, I'm here.
What was the chapter? Okay, wait, it's here. Okay, here it is. Never mind. All right. I'm looking for. Okay, so we all look, and our 14ers are going to love this. Where is Abraham? Abraham. Abraham. Why did I not highlight? This is why you got to highlight. I'm not. Is it all the days of Lamech, Joseph, Shem, begot son? Where am I missing Abraham's genealogy? Which one is that? I'm so. Was it here?
You're looking for Noah's descendants.
No, I'm looking for Abraham's descendants. Where the birth of Abraham. When Abraham was born to his dad, Terah. Why can I not find that? Help me out. Nahor.
You're looking for chapter 11.
There we go. I knew, I was like, where?
It's like verse 24.
Ah, there it is. I just kept clicking through. Okay, so I want to show you guys this. This is something cool, and I think our 14ers are going to love this. Terah lived 70 years and begat Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Right? Now, Abraham is actually the youngest. Nahor's the middle. Haran's the oldest. And then you can go through the Book of Jubilees and a couple of the other apocryphal books, Book of Jasher, and they actually tell you that Haran's quite I want to say 28 years older than Abraham. But we were just looking, how they Amish was clicking on the names earlier. So when you go to Abram, you click on his name, right? You have, let me click here, excuse me. You have the high father, Abram, right? You go to Nahor, excuse me. You have the snorer, guys. So you have
Wow.
Judah, you have Nahor as in the middle child, the snorer as the sleeping church. And guys, you ready for this? I know y'all gonna love this, my 14ers. Haran being the oldest, the last first, the first last, the last first. You have Haran as the mountaineers. Are you kidding me, guys? What is
Wow.
Alan talked about with the mountain? The guys, the 14ers who climb the mountain. I mean, are you serious right now? I mean, like, is it? It's almost like, are the watchmen of today? You would believe that. I mean, you would think that we're somehow put into this, right? If it's prophesied at a future date. I mean, this is the mountaineers, which is the first, the oldest, the last, the first or last or first, right? You got the 14ers, you got Nahor, which represents the middle child, the sleeping church, the snorer, right? The snorers because they're asleep through seals, and you have Abraham's time, Judah, for trumpets. Come on. It's one of those wow
There's
moments.
there's only two sets in the genealogies where it gives three names at once, and there's some discussion on the internet about those three sets being twins, but and the other set is Noah's kids. So when you see Ham, Shem, and Japheth, that's the only other place in any of the genealogies. Every other place in the genealogies says so and so was this many years when he begat so and so. And if there are other children, that it just says and other sons and daughters.
Mm-hmm.
But in the case of Noah and in the case of Terah, who is the father of Abraham, it doesn't say that. It gives all three names. Well, it's not likely that they are triplets because even back then it would have been an extraordinary event for somebody to have triplets, and it would have been mentioned because elsewhere there's a set of twins or something where it actually mentions that they are twins. But the names are given because these are three very significant individuals in this story, both the children of Noah and the children of Terah, and in both cases their names have significance
Yeah,
and point to that end time understanding.
yeah, and watch this. So, and this is going to be tie into something else, which is crazy. So you have this time frame we're talking about now. You have at the time period of Lot and Noah, you have the uncovering of the ark, a veil, right? The veil is being lifted. Well, Haran, the type of shadow of the mountaineers, the type of shadow of the 14ers, those that go above 14 years, begat Lot. You look at Lot's name, well, he's Abraham's nephew, right? But let's go into it. A veil, a covering. So when Lot is rescued, a veil is lifted, a covering is lifted. Why? Because Christ is coming as the Son of Man for 40 days. Like, either, we just are coincidence kings or it's saying something, right? Man, that's I think that's all I got.
What about the part here where Noah pulls in the dove and then the angels pulled in Lot to rescue him?
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier when they took him in. I can't remember the word took. I think it was 19, I believe. Yeah, this is when they take him by the hand, right? They brought him forth, or where is it at? Which was that? I couldn't find that one. I couldn't find the
My
tape. I
favorite
forgot.
my favorite part of that Lot
Oh,
story
right
is
here.
that
Right
Lot
here.
is given an opportunity to identify all of his extended family, and he goes out that night and he spends the night warning them to come with them because the city's going to be destroyed. Of course, they mock him to scorn, and then they end up perishing in the thing. But But my favorite part of the story is he's given that opportunity, and I just hope that's a shadow
Yeah.
of us having that same opportunity.
So this is what Charles was talking about. This is that men, right? But this is the actual angels. They put forth their hand and they pull Lot into the house and shut the door. They pull Lot into the house and shut the door, right? They save them from an upbringing. If you go to Noah, and at the end of 7 days, he sent forth the dove, right? And the dove came back. No, it's up one more. And he sent forth the dove. The waters were abated off the earth, but the dove found no soul for feet. And when she returned to the ark, right, he put forth his hand and took her and pulled her in. So you have this same took and pull into an ark as
As a
Lot,
rescue, as a safe.
as Lot being pulled and took into a house and the door shut, right? Because you're going to have the door shut of the ark soon.
That's correct.
This is why it goes back to when we're looking at Luke 17. Luke is New Testament, right? No, I'm just kidding. It's saying they did eat, they drank, right? But they did, they married until the day that Noah entered the ark, right? The same thing that destroyed them all. Likewise, also, they did eat and drink in the days of Lot until the same day that it rained down brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. That's the same story we were just showing you in Genesis happened at the same time. They're overlaying each other.
That's correct. Yeah, what Mike's talking about is exactly correct. It's when Noah pulls in the dove, it's because there was no place for the dove to rest. She needed to be rescued. So Noah pulls in the dove and rescues the dove. And it's the same thing with the angels when they were with Lot. The angels were inside his house, and Lot was outside trying to deal with the men outside. And so the angels pulled him in as a type and shadow of a rescue. So it's the same story being overlaid. Good job, Mike.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be lost either that those three names that he was drilling into support our final 21-year end time understanding, because in the birth of the sons of Terah, you have Abraham representing Judah, you have Noah representing the sleeping church, and you have Haran, who is the uncle of Lot, as in the days of Lot. So you have all three sets, just like we were talking about in Daniel, where he fasted 3 full weeks, 3 sets of 7.
And so Haran would be representing us in the Luke's time now as the mountaineers.
Which is the first time period above 14 years, which is why I pulled up 2 Corinthians 12. I knew a man in Christ above 14 years ago. How it was such as one. Now, somebody said earlier in a comment, rapture, there's no rapture in the Bible. The Bible, no part of the Bible. Literally, they gave me a comment and said, it's a made-up fairy tale to believe in an escape or a rapture in the Bible. Well, if you're watching, which I'm positive those people don't watch, they just write comments. It says caught up. This means to seize, to pluck, to pull, which is harpazo, which is the same thing as a rapture, my buddy, right? But this is such as one caught up. This isn't the catching away. This is such as one going to the third heaven. And then the snorer, the one I showed you, Nahor, the snorer, right? How they're sleeping and they're going to be awakened during seals. How it's no longer a man in Christ, it's just a man, and how he was caught up into paradise. Then you have the father, Abraham, which is the father which represents Judah, which is the third time I'm ready to come to you, right? They shouldn't lay up for the children, right? I will not be burdensome to you, for I seek not yours, but you. For the children ought not to lay up for the parents, but the parents for the children. So this is the third time. There's no catching away. There's no like a caught away. There's no catch. This is when he comes, feet down on them. This is when he comes the third time and feet down on the Mount of Olives, where he's here for good, which is the third represent of the dove being sent out the third time, where it doesn't come back anymore. Anyways, that's all I got.
Awesome, good job.
So
you want me to go into my part now about tying all those dates together?
Yeah, yeah. If
Yeah.
you don't mind, finish it up.
Okay. Let's just wrap up the dates that Mike's talking about. Did you have something to add there, Amish? Did you say something?
Well, when you're done, I just want to tease our next video.
Okay. So let's get into the details of the exact dates and time frames that Mike so graciously put out there for us to follow. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and it's very similar to what we did with the Noah and Daniel story. Now on our calendar, can you guys see the calendar? Is it on the screen?
Yes, sir.
Just making sure that we can.
Yeah.
So as we laid the Daniel story on our big calendar, we also laid the story found in Jubilees. We laid that on our big calendar too. So that way, if you want a big overview picture of all the stories combined, it's on the big overview of the calendar. But what I did was, again, like with Noah and Daniel, I pulled off these tabs that are kind of brown. That refers to what Mike was talking about in Daniel, Abraham, and Lot, all these ones in brown here. So I pulled all of that off, and I made another calendar that has only the story of Noah and Abraham and Lot and Sarah on this. So it's the same calendar. It's just I took everything else off, and it's only dealing with Noah, Abraham, and Lot to show how all those intricate parts of the story literally fall on the exact same dates. So what we're going to show you is not only does Noah and Daniel's story lay out on the same dates, but the Noah and Abraham and Lot story all fall on the exact same dates as well. And when we found this, it was just so mind-blowing and shocking. And it led into a bunch of other things that you'll probably see in the next video or the next couple of videos just before our escape on September 11th next week. But we're going to do as best as we can to get through this and teach you the rest of it in another video. So we already laid out the story of Noah in just about 30 minutes ago when I was teaching this. So we know the story of Noah begins right here, 2nd month, 17th day. We just went through that teaching and how it's June 7th and how it related to Daniel. But now we're going to show you how this entire story that Mike laid out falls within the exact same days and time frame that the Noah story falls out. And one of the most important things that came out of this, where we knew that we were in the exact same time frame, was this verse here in Jubilee 16, where it says, on the noon moon of the 4th month, an angel appeared to Abraham saying, at an appointed time, Sarah would conceive Isaac. Now, wait a minute. When you go to the calendar, to the 4th month, 1st day, it is the new moon. It's the new moon of the 4th month. So look, we're not making this up. When you go to the Enoch calendar, 4th month, 1st date, it's the new moon. And what did we have in one of our prior teachings? That on this day, which on the Gregorian calendar is July 21, it's the Metonic cycle. And just as a brief overview of what that is, it's right here. It's in 1887. There was a group of Jews who went back to Israel. Well, it wasn't a country yet called Israel, but they went back to the land, and they decided to settle and make communities over there. They made 50 communities, and they decided on their own, without any government, without any help from anyone, they decided on their own to start settling back into the land. And ever since that time in 1887, every 19 years, precisely every 19 years, on July 21, the sun and the moon join together in the sign of Cancer. And that sign only started appearing when the Jews started returning back to the land. And that community today is known as Tel Aviv. So they were settling in Tel Aviv. They called it something else back then. I forgot what it was. But this is the 19-year Metonic cycle that has occurred every year since 1887. And we're finding that date in Jubilees. It's telling us the 4th month, 4th month, 1st day of and there's a new moon. It's this date. So what happens on that date? This is critical to understand this part of what really happened on that date. The angels told Abraham what? That Sarah would conceive at an appointed time and that they would come back. Sarah didn't conceive in the 4th month, 1st day. They were just there appearing to Abraham, marking this day They marked this day for us so we know what? That we're in the timeline of Noah. This date falls in the same timeline as Noah does. You can clearly see that. And they're telling Abraham, we're going to come back at an appointed time. And then Sarah's going to conceive. And when did they come back? You want to be shocked when they came back? It says, the appointed time, set time in the middle of the 6th month. Elul is the 6th month. This is the month that Mike was referring to, Elul.
Yeah, I could remember.
This is Jubilee 16. In the middle of the month, the Lord visited Sarah and done unto her as he had spoken, and she conceived. Right here. It's telling us the exact time. And when is that? It's the next Metonic cycle. And I want to be clear why this is so critical. Why is it so critical? They came in the 6th month because they're marking this next Metonic cycle exactly on September 11th. What is this Metonic cycle? What happened is in 3 BC, it was Tishri 1 and it was September 11th. So 3 BC, when Christ was born, it was September 11th and Tishri 1. But now coming into our time, it's separated by a span of 8 days. September 11th is here, but Tishri 1's over here, and we're going to explain why there's a difference now. And the difference is the Metonic cycle. This is what happens. Every 19 years, these dates are spread out. This is what's going on. And in this year, on September 11th, 2020, this Metonic cycle of the spread of Tishri 1 and September 11th happens again, and it happens every 19 years. The last time when this Metonic cycle happened, does everybody remember September 11th, 2001? 19 years ago? That was Tishri 1. Now here we are 19 years later, and this Metonic cycle is playing out again. And how was it marked? By Jubilees. When the angels, why didn't Sarah just conceive over here? They came already. They talked to them. It's because there was a future to be told in this story. And the future is now. Understand something that's critical. This Metonic cycle and this Metonic cycle only happens every 19 years. These cycles aren't going to come back until 19 more years from now. That's why this is the year. There is no other year. We're not waiting 19 more years. The Lord is coming now. This is the reason why these angels marked these 2 Metonic cycles when they were telling Abraham and Sarah about the birth of Isaac. And they came back in the 6th month on the Metonic cycle.
And what did they say about coming back? What did they say?
Sorry?
Destruction on that day of Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yep. I'm going to get to that. Exactly. So what Mike's talking about is let's go back to Sodom and Gomorrah now. Let's get back to that part of the story. What happened on that day? When you read the story about Sodom and Gomorrah and Lot, what happened when they were trying to get out of the city? They were delaying, they were tarrying, they were talking, doing things, trying to get things ready. And what happened on that date? You read the story. The angels grabbed them by the hand. They grabbed Lot and his family by the hand, and they were escorting them out of the city very swiftly. And what was happening? What was happening on that same time when they were escorting them out of the city immediately? The brimstones of fire were falling upon the city at the exact same moment that they were escaping. So what we're saying is on the day of our escape, on September 11th, just like the story of Abraham and Lot, the angel of the Lord is coming to take us out of here swiftly. And on that same day, the attack of Israel will happen. Fire will befall upon the entire country, the entire city of Jerusalem. The attack will happen on this date. It's a type and shadow of exactly what's playing out in the story of Lot. The destruction befell upon them on the same day when the angels took Lot and his family and rescued them out of the city. This escape day is our rescue, and that's the day that Israel will be attacked. Well, isn't that interesting? Doesn't that just fall into the story that we just taught about Noah and Daniel? Didn't we say that right around this time frame, Israel gets attacked, and what happens? Gedaliah dies. Gedaliah is killed. And what did Amish just teach us? That right here, starting on Tishri 1, when Daniel's aware that his friend Gedaliah has been killed, what does Daniel start doing on Tishri 3? Fasting and mourning. The attack. Gedaliah is killed. Daniel, fasting and mourning. Do you see how it's in order? We just taught it to you in order of what's going on here. Israel's attacked. We escape. The angel of the Lord comes and takes us out of here and rescues us out of here. We're accounted worthy to get out of here and leave. We are rescued. And then the rest of the Daniel 10 story starts playing out, where Daniel is fasting and mourning for 21 days, and then Christ is revealed to him. Let's go on with this now. So where are we at here? In this part of Jubilees, of Jubilee 16. The angels appeared to Sarah in the 7th month when she was with child. Okay? And what happens? In the story of Jesus Christ's birth, what happens? With Jesus Christ, the King of all the angels, he'll appear on the earth on the same day. Didn't we just talk about this is the day that Christ is revealed? What else does it talk about in Jubilees when you read that passage that Mike just laid out to us? It says Isaac was what? Circumcised on the 8th day. Let's spend a minute on this, and I'm going to show you why this is so critical. Didn't we say this is right here, September 11th is our wedding day, the day that we escaped, the day that we're rescued, like Lot was rescued? And then there's 7 days to the wedding. If you add 7 days to September 11th, it's September 18th. That brings you here. September 19th is the 8th day. The 8th day that we read in Luke 9:28, when he on the Mount Transfiguration, and they were transfigured on the 8th day. But also, what does it say in Jubilees? On the 8th day, Isaac was circumcised. And this is the story of also the birth of Christ, right? Christ was born. Let's say this is September 11th, 3 BC. Christ was born on September 11th, 3 BC. 8 days later after his birth, he would have been circumcised. What day would that be today? 8 days from now? Oh, September 19th, Tishri 1, 8th day circumcision. Back in 3 BC, when Christ was born on September 11th, 8 days later, he was in fact circumcised on September 19th, 3 BC. So this year, on the 8th day, is his circumcision day. Literally. This is the exact day Jesus Christ was circumcised. You see, he's revealed. What did we teach about the revealing earlier? And this is so critical. I'm going to just go over it one more time with a little twist to it. What did we show? Why does this relate to Noah? We just showed why it relates to Noah. On this date right here, Tishri 1, what does it say in Genesis 8:13 that we've already discussed in the last segment? This Tishri 1 is Genesis 8:13. When you go to Genesis 8:13, it says it's what? The 601st year of Noah, first day, first month, Tishri 1, when the cover of the ark was removed. And when you look up 601 in the Strongs, it means take off the cover. So it's the revealing, taking off the ark, the revealing of Jesus Christ. Well, guess what? Did Jesus talk about this too? Did Jesus talk about the revealing? Oh, yes, he did. What did he say in Luke 17:30? Even thus shall it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. And revealed is 601, take off the cover, which is the 601 in Genesis 8:13, when the cover of the ark was removed. Jesus is telling us in Luke 17 that the day the Son of Man is revealed, this is the day. Tishri 1, he's going to be revealed. And didn't we show that in Daniel 10? That in Daniel 10, he appears to Daniel in these 21 days of his fasting and mourning, which ends on the 24th of Tishri. He's revealed, he sees Christ. Daniel sees Jesus Christ. You know what's interesting about this? Did you get the connection? What does it say? This verse, this line right here, day 1, is Genesis 8:13, when the covering of the ark is removed. What did I just say that day was? If this was 3 BC, it'd be September 19th, when Christ was circumcised, when the skin was removed, when Christ is revealed. It's the same thing. Jesus Christ is literally telling us in Luke 17:30 that he's going to be revealed on his original circumcision day. Why is that important? Because when you go back to the laws of Moses, when can a child be revealed? A child is revealed a male child is revealed on his circumcision day. He's presented to the Lord. He's given his name. He's circumcised. And after the circumcision, he's presented to the Lord. He's revealed. Jesus Christ told us in Luke 17, the day the Son of Man is revealed would be September 19th in 3 BC, which it again is now September 19th in this year, would be the 8th day of his circumcision from the day of his birth in September 11th, 3 BC. Exactly. Christ will be revealed once again upon this earth on the 8th day of his circumcision. And with that, brothers and sisters, take great heed and understand there is no other day, there is no other time. Jesus Christ himself told us in Luke 17:30 that this will be the day he's revealed. With that, I thank you. I'm done with my piece. If you guys have something else to add.
Yeah, actually, you know what, Day? So if y'all can remember, there's I forget the channel, but he's always talking about that prophecy of the two Benjamins that'll be inside the land, and the government's going to fail, which it is right now. And on the next Sabbath or the next Saturday, the Messiah would reveal himself. And y'all know what date September 7th, 19th is? Yep. It's a Sabbath for the Hebrews, for the Jews.
That's right.
That's that prophecy coming true. So it's like how much more could it be? Like you tell me that we follow the Bible, and we're not picking Sabbaths. We're not lining up making Sabbaths fit on our calendar where it is. This is where we've got from the Enoch calendar, from the book of Daniel, from the Noah story. This is using the dates from the Bible, that the dates that the Bible's giving to us. And then that ends up falling on a Sabbath and also on a prophecy from one of the longtime rabbis in Jerusalem. Like, come on.
And what's really powerful about this video, what we're showing you, is Noah, by the verse, is pointing to this day of a revealing. Jesus Christ himself in Luke 17:30 is pointing to this day of his revealing of his circumcision on the 8th day, which would have been September 19th, 3 BC. And who else is pointing to this date? Daniel's pointing to the same time frame. We just went over that. Who else is pointing to the same day? The story of Abraham and Lot, pointing to the exact same day on the Metonic cycle, where Christ will be revealed on this date. We now have 4 different scriptures: Daniel, Luke, Jubilees, the story of Genesis and the Ark, all pointing to the revealing on Tishri 1. And what do we say about Tishri 1? It's the day when all kings get crowned. Now, isn't that interesting? Our King of Kings will be back on the earth, revealed on the day that kings get crowned.
Boom.
So speaking of revealed, that's something we're going to take on with the next video, and that is to show what we're setting out to show is we've got the count from the genealogies from Adam all the way up to present day, and what we intend to show is that the count, most people that carry this 7-year tribulation understanding are understanding, oh, it's the missing 7 years from 483 to year 0, right? Well, we've shown here already in previous videos that Christ wasn't born in year 0. He was born in 3 BC. So where's your missing 7 years? There. But what I intend to show is that we're not even in the right century. When you tie all of the historical documentation together from Josephus and other historians, we're going to show that there is no 483 years or 490 years. But what there is is there's 601 years. And that 601 years works both from the siege of Jerusalem to the birth of Christ, but also works from the decree that's going out to rebuild the temple to the destruction of that temple in 70 AD. And it all comes back to 601 years, G 601, revealed, uncovered.
Amen.
Stay
Amen.
tuned for the next video.
It'll be a short one. I'm joking. All right, wait. Let me get this. Let me get something real quick lined up. Real quick.
Time for a little bit of funny.
Yeah. Time for a
This
little bit.
is in honor of some of the comments that we've gotten on our previous videos.
You do it every year.
Yeah. Let me see here. Make sure it's the second one, right? You sent me the second one. That's the one.
No. Well, do the first one.
You sent me a casting crowns video. No, that's not it. Yeah, it's the first one.
No, do the first one.
All right. All right. All right. Let me get this going. Alrighty. With that, guys, we're gonna give an outro video, but we thank you guys very much for joining us. We love you guys and hope that y'all understood and followed everything along. Hopefully, we didn't mess a whole lot up. I know it is late. It's past our bedtimes for some of us. But with that being said, we got something for a few of you guys.
Have a good night. God bless you guys.
Yep, God bless you guys.
When me and my friends go out in the town, we can't sit still, we can't sit down. We don't like to fight and we don't like to scuffle, but we dance all night doing the curly shuffle. Hey Mo, hey Mo, hey Mo, hey Mo. Well, yuck, 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 yuck. What is he? What is he? Well, we never miss a chance. We get up and dance and do the curly shuffle. Well, me and my friends love Larry and Mo. We love Curly's brother Shemp and his fat clone Joe. It's such a delight to boogie and hustle, dancing all night doing the curly shuffle. Hey Mo, hey Mo, hey Mo, hey Mo. Well, yuck, 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 yuck. Oh, wee, 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 wee. Oh, wise guy. Well, we never miss a chance. We get up and dance and do the curly shuffle. That's right. Well, me and my friends, we all love to see comedy classics on late night TV. Those knuckleheads love to get in a scuffle. They push and they shove, doing the curly shuffle. Hey Mo, hey Mo, hey Mo, hey Mo. Well, yuck, 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 yuck. Look at the grouse, look at the grouse, look at the grouse, look at the grouse. Well, we never miss a chance. We get up and dance and do the curly shuffle. Right, we do the curly shuffle. What'd you say? We do the curly shuffle. That's what I thought you said. We do the curly shuffle. We do the curly shuffle. Sweet. We never miss a chance. We get up and dance and do the curly
guys, and good night.